First class trip across the Atlantic. Make sure you put them laces out. I've been out and about, and I'm loud cause I found another sound. And I'll pound on the ground for my guys across the pond. Kickers matter, that's their song. Trust me when that word is bone. Y'all can clap, clap, sing along. But on the real, they got some real deal analysis. Take the wheel, I think I feel like a catalyst for this build. You know your boy is never out of it. Matter of fact, I think I'll go and win a championship. KMWO, KMWO. Man, you know how this go. Yeah. KMWO. Kickers matter, world order. Man, y'all already know. Let's go.
Hello, welcome to a Kickers Matter Devy podcast. Joined tonight by Mr. Jason Wilkinson. How you doing, mate?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm in need of a haircut, like most people. But yeah, I'm. And a man who doesn't need a haircut.
Definitely no haircuts here, Jack.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
It's been a long time, boys.
It has. Was it the last draft? I think the last time we done this, wasn't it?
Surely we've done a few since then.
We have.
I think we done one back in October. I think that was our last effort on the Devy side.
What happened since then?
Yeah, we got full seasons and everything really. NFL finished. We got a college season, sort of. Yeah, it was a interesting year, and I think we're all looking forward to college football being back properly next season.
Oh, definitely. It was so frustrating, like getting a notification that one of the big games had been cancelled like 2 days before, it was supposed to kick off and whatnot. The NFL did really well, didn't they, to keep the season running as they did, but college football just they haven't got the money and the resources to do what the NFL did they? So
it's looking good for next year, though. Texas and Florida pretty much fully open now, right? They've abandoned COVID in Texas.
They've been masked off, haven't they? They're not.
It's over. They've just declared that over.
Doesn't exist.
I think they were the first two states to do that, weren't they? Before America had their meltdown. And
Florida's been pretty open, pretty much all the way through. Texas had a few more restrictions, but have lifted all of them pretty much from Monday. So I think it's pretty safe to say that unless something changes, you'll have a full Texas season, if nothing else.
So tonight we was going to look at our new Devy rankings. It is Devy season. We are in the midst of some big drafts at the minute for Devy. So yeah, it is Devy season. We're going to take a look at our updated rankings. 3 my guys that are going into the NFL, and we've had on our Devy rosters for a while, and we've had our eye on for a while, so to speak. And then we'll take a look at the upcoming college season as well. So we'll start with Jason's rankings, I suppose.
Yeah, you'll have to. I've not got them in front of me, so you'll have to read them out your end, Jack, if you don't mind.
That's fine, mate. I can read them out my end. Do you want me to start with the quarterbacks? You happy to start there?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we've got DJ.
This is very smooth, Jack.
Sorry?
This is very smooth.
We've got DJ Ukulele here at QB1 for Jason. It's Sam Howell as his QB2, Spencer Rattler as his QB3, Bryce Young there at QB4, Jaden Daniels at QB5. Any reasoning behind your top 5 here, Jason? Or
I like what I saw out of Ukulele for Clemson when he stepped in for Lawrence last season. Obviously, 5-star prospect, highly recruited guy that Clemson beat off quite a few teams to get. And I just think he's got the best all-around cast around him out of those guys. And I know he's not going to come out until 2023. And most people have got Howell as their QB1. I like Howell. I saw a few things from him last year that were not necessarily concerning for me, but that I thought would concern NFL teams. So yeah, I'm still pretty comfortable with Howell, but I just think the upside of Ugalele is swaying me more that way. And then I think Jaden Daniels probably a little bit higher on him than most. I know Alan's not. I don't think Alan's a huge fan, but from what I've seen from him, despite sort of the opposition that he's been playing, he looks like a perfect dual threat quarterback. Just needs to put a little bit of weight on, but he has got the frame to do that. And that's pretty much the top 5. Why they're sat where they are.
Alan, do you have? I know you've got a different number 1. So do you have any?
I've got Howell at 1, and I think overall when you're ranking quarterbacks, the thing that came out to me for most of these is I'm not really blown away by any of them. I think for the top 15 quarterbacks for the first time in a number of years, there's not many of them that are really jumping out as real can't miss prospects. There's a lot that we need to see this year. The class next year looks patchy. Howell has shown some good things, I think, as Jason says, but he has shown some warts in the past 12 months that does make you worry a little bit. There's certainly there's no Trevor Lawrence in this bunch that I've seen yet. There's some sort of guys that could take a big jump. I mean, JT Daniels could take a big jump, if he gets a full year at Georgia. Carson Strong in Nevada looks really good, but it's difficult to tell in Nevada whether he's really an NFL quarterback or not. So it's not an overwhelmingly exciting group, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
I agree. Before we come on tonight, I was actually looking at the QB class coming in this year. It's for 20, not for college, sorry, going into the NFL, and I was looking through position by position, and it's probably one of the strongest positions coming. There's some very good quarterbacks coming out this year who've declared for the draft. Along with wide receivers, I think it's a very good wide receiver class as well. But
it's obviously difficult because they've been around longer. But the top 4 quarterbacks in the draft this year are the top 4 Devy quarterbacks.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously Zach Wilson was a guy that was, he wasn't even a top 100 Devy player until the start of the season. So, I think as disappointing as the up and coming quarterbacks look potentially compared to what we've got coming now, you could just have a Joe Burrow or a Zach Wilson, in their final year, and then they declare, and next thing you know, top 10 NFL draft pick. So
yeah, so it's someone you'd expect to emerge. There's someone in this list who I'd imagine will make a big jump in the next year. Maybe Howell, maybe Daniels, maybe Strong, maybe Slovis. I mean, one of those guys is probably going to emerge, but at the moment, it's difficult to say who that one would be.
I think what you said, Alan, about next year's class, especially the 2022. I mean, 23. We're just going off, potential really for the 23 class at the moment. But for the 22 class, I think, as much as you say, Howell needs to pop. I think for him, it's more that he needs to just not show any more flaws than any of the patchy, few little bits that he's shown already, because it's not that of a strong quarterback class next year, and he is the consensus QB1 for next year. I just think he needs to just have another solid year. Obviously, he's lost Daz Newsome, he's lost Diami Brown, he's lost Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. So, it's going to be a very different team for him next year. And I think if he can put together another season like he has now, then I think he'll be all right. But I don't see, a super, super high ceiling yet from Sam Howell, personally.
Was there anyone else on your list that sort of stood out for you, Jason?
You can crack on through the rest of them, mate, but that's the top 5 pretty much summarised.
So we've got Stroud at 6, we've got JT Daniels at 7, Caleb Williams at 8, Carson Strong at 9, Hudson Card at 10, Keaton Slovis at 11, Brock Vandegrift at 12, Tyler Buncher I'm really going to butcher these names tonight. Harrison Bailey and Drake Mayer at 15.
Probably the one guy Jason hasn't got that I've got quite high is Kyle McCord, who's just joined Ohio State.
We had a bit of a discussion about him, didn't we, Alan? Before. I mean, I like McCord. I like the tape that I watched. Played very good opposition. Good. Played for a top end high school and produced really well. This incoming quarterback class is actually really nice. I really like a few of these guys that have come in as the 2021 prospects, and I think he hasn't missed out by much, and he could easily be shuffled around a bit more. I think I preferred Tyler Buchner's tape. I preferred Brock Vandegrift's tape. And with Caleb Williams, like we've said before, it's just the Oklahoma thing. The main concern with Kyle McCord for me is he has CJ Stroud in front of him, who I think he's got a good chance of potentially beating out. If he doesn't, he sits behind him for a year, and then Stroud potentially looks to move on. But you've got Quinn Ewers coming in next year, who is already a 5-star prospect. He could change his mind and go with another team, but at the minute he's committed to Ohio State, and he is a lot more of a highly touted prospect than what Kyle McCord was coming out. So, we may. I just think you're looking at Kyle McCord as a potential transfer at some point in his college career, but certainly a good prospect.
Indeed. Alan, anyone else you would like to touch on from your rankings?
Those I think we've covered everyone there. I'd probably go into running backs.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's quite an exciting time for everyone, as you just said, Alan, as well, with these. Well, certainly 4 of the quarterbacks coming into the NFL. It's exciting times for a lot of people's Devy rosters, I suppose. Let's get to Jason's running backs. So here we go. Oh, that's a surprise, Jason. You've got Breece Hall as your RB1. Explain that. I've seen Bijan as a lot of consensus as the overall number 1 Devy player at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, Bijan was a beast coming out of high school. Went to Texas, went to a bit of a crowded backfield with Keontae Ingram there and a few other guys there. I think I had him at about RB6 or RB7 as a Devy prospect, just coming out of high school before he'd even played a snap. The difference, I think you have a higher ceiling with Bijan Robinson, and potentially the NFL will like him more. But Breece Hall now is 2 seasons in a row that he's pretty much led the college football in rushing. I don't see many flaws to his play. He's a very good pass catcher out the backfield, which we haven't seen massively from Bijan yet. And I think if you went back 3 months, if you went to the middle of the college season and looked at people's Devy rankings, everyone would have Breece Hall as their RB1. But obviously Bijan's the last 4 games of the season where they turned to him and he looked really impressive. Has obviously swayed people towards putting him at 1, but I'm not quite there yet. But that 2023 running back class is, it looks just brilliant. I don't know how you feel about it, Alan, but there's some very, very good running backs coming through 2023.
Yeah, I think the exact opposite of quarterbacks. Actually, there's just more and more and more running backs coming through, which is definitely going to affect strategy for Devy. It's going to affect strategy for fantasy for years to come. There's just a flood of running backs coming into the league over the next few years. It's going to make it really difficult to work out who is likely to get to a second contract. It's going to be almost impossible to guess. You're going to have to really be looking for these sort of generational backs. I think that's probably why I've got Bijan above Hall.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think Hall's production's been excellent. I think what he's shown so far has been really good. But has it separated from so many other great backs that have come through in the past few years? Probably not. You look at Bijan and you see something pretty special. Actually, you could see him being one of the rare top 10 picks in the draft, someone who goes with that kind of draft capital, gets to a second contract. And I think that's going to be the real challenge in a lot of these guys in Devy in years to come. I mean, a lot of the times in running backs, you're going to be buying for 4 years and then maybe a 2-year second contract somewhere, and that'll be it. And trying to factor that into some of these guys is going to be really tough.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to go on draft stock and landing spot and things like that. I mean, I personally, when I draft a running back, these rookie running backs that are coming through now, I don't look beyond the first contract. If I can get a full first contract out of them, then great. I sort of made a mistake with Melvin Gordon. I picked him in quite a few leagues coming in as a rookie, and really I should have moved him on, before he got into his last year, his contract year.
I said this on Keeper's Matter the other day actually about running backs, and when is the right time to move on from them. I don't think there ever is a right time. I just think you have to sell around their highest point. Maybe I sold Chris McCaffrey, for instance, last year in one dynasty league, and I was probably a year too early on that, maybe. But I'd rather be the year too early and still get a good value than.
Oh yeah, of course.
So McCaffrey's good. McCaffrey's an exception a little bit though, because he catches so many passes, right? So he's kind of a strange one. Whereas you've got this whole chunk of other backs. Yeah. They're really good runners and reasonable pass catchers.
Yeah,
you're just never going to be able. I mean, I was talking to someone about Miles Sanders earlier. I mean, Sanders last year was great coming in at the start of the season. Suddenly coming into this season, he's going into his third year. Yeah. And if he's a great season this year, are they going to pay him? Probably not. I think you get another year and that's it.
I think with these running backs, I think if they get top 10 draft stock and they get that 5th-year option and the team exercises the 5th-year option, they exercising it because they want to set them up for a new contract. And like you say, McCaffrey's different, Kamara's different. You have got a few backs that do their own thing very differently to what your average, your standard 3 down, good running back does. So I think that's a very good point, Alan. I think McCaffrey is a little bit different, but I think you're right, Jack. I think you have to pick a time when it's a good time to move on from a running back. I mean, I know people that moved on from Derrick Henry a year ago, 2 years ago, thinking he'd hit his peak, and he just keeps going. So you're never going to know. I mean,
you're never going to know. But I would rather sell higher than end up with Todd Gurley on my rosters.
Well, exactly. I mean, look how quick that turned sour.
Yeah,
and that's another one you need to look at in a lot of these things. These guys for Devy is injuries are going to kill you. Anyone who comes in with any sort of injury history, you want to stay as far away from as you possibly can.
I just maybe not even necessarily just the injury history, but sometimes like the type, the way that they run. I mean, I've got Javonte Williams on 3 Devy rosters. I'm buzzing with the hype he's got coming into the draft, but he's a Thomas Rawls type runner who will get hurt in the NFL. I don't think if you ask me now, does Javonte Williams get a second contract with a team that drafts him? I would put my money in the hat and say no. I don't think he does, because I don't think he plays 16 games a season for 4 years. I don't think it's going to happen. And he's a very, very good running back. But these sort of guys that are coming in, like you say, Alan, unless they're a Bijan Robinson, and that they're a top tier talent, then you can only expect to get a first year, their first 4 years out of them, and then it's all on where they go. Then how much they get paid and what type of role they get at their second team.
Indeed. So the rest of your we'll just go through the rest. So you have Bijan at number 2, Tank Bigsby at number 3, Jahmyr Gibbs at 4, Isaiah Spiller at 5, Travion Henderson at 6. That's an interesting one. I took Travion Henderson as the 101 in one of our Devy leagues, supplemental drafts. That was a super flex league as well. Zachary Evans, Jace McLean, Eric Gray, Jerrion Ely, Kevin Harris, Kyrian Williams, DeMarcus Bowman, DeMonte Trayman, and Kendall Milton.
Yeah, the only one really that I think could slip out of that is Traynham. Some of his tape that I saw last year for Arizona State wasn't great. he could be a guy that slips. But I think you tend to find that throughout the season, the running back and wide receiver rankings change a lot more than the quarterback and the tight end rankings. But I think looking at Alan's, his running backs, certainly as you got a bit further down, were quite similar to what mine were.
Yeah, probably the biggest gap of players around here. Very similar in Travion, which again, back to the Bijan piece, which is, 5-star recruit coming in, gives you the suggestion that he's probably going to get the job in Ohio State quite quickly and carry that draft capital through. I'm probably a bit higher than Kyron Williams than you are. I think he'll be well set up for a pretty big season next year.
Yeah, I think production-wise, I think if you owned him in a C2C league, I think he's gonna score really well for you. My only concerns with Kyron Williams when I watched him was I didn't see him create a lot himself. He was a kind of took what was given to him running back behind a ridiculously good offensive line. That was my only worry with Kyron, really.
I'd agree with you on training. I've just got a thing. I can't stand prospects that come out of Arizona. Either of the two colleges in Arizona, they just never seem to amount to anything.
Yeah, it's fair enough. A lot of the good prospects that come out of the state of Arizona normally sign with one of the Texas teams if they're a top prospect. So yeah, I agree.
Except Nick Foles.
Let's not go there. Let's move on to the wide receivers. And where do you believe this, Jason? I as I told you, I've been in a mock Devy draft, Superflex draft. Greg Brandt, one of his mocks. I got George Pickens at the 1.12, and I got Garrett Wilson at the 201.
Lovely little pair in there. Could be the 1 and 2 from next year.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that. So your wide receivers: Pickens at 1, Treylon Burks at 2, Garrett Wilson number 3, David Bell 4, Keishon Butte at 5. Explain, mate. Explain.
Yeah, so I've been high on Pickens, as people know, since he came in really to Georgia. He's had some awful quarterback play to deal with, but he got JT Daniels in last year, and we saw what he was capable of. I just think he projects as a an alpha in the NFL. I don't really see too many weaknesses to his game. He has good top end speed. He's physical. He separates well. His release is fantastic, getting off the line of scrimmage. I don't really see many holes in his game. Treylon Burks is a guy that's risen for me a lot recently. I was quite interested to see where Alan would put him, whether he would rank him, because the Devy community as a whole are quite hot on him at the minute. But I know there's a few guys that say are potentially a couple of months behind, haven't really caught up with who Treylon Burks is, but it reminds me a bit of DK Metcalf, who's just so aggressive and physical. And I just see really high draft stock with him.
You hated DK Metcalf.
Say it again. What'd you say?
I certainly did. That was a big use of mine, DK Metcalf.
Yeah. I mean, I was. I think me and you, Jack, we were both AJ Brown over DK Metcalf coming out, weren't we?
I still might be.
Yeah, it's a close one, and they're very different players. But I was. DK Metcalf is one of those that I'll happily stand up and say that I was wrong on. I think on Twitter leading up to that draft, it was either you were a massive DK Metcalf fan or you weren't. But as with a lot of other players, you'll get people that say that they're not into a prospect, and then 3 months later when they stand
you're not suggesting Twitter is full of people with revisionist history, are you?
I am suggesting that, yeah.
Landing spot is key, though. Landing spot is key.
Yeah, it is massively, yeah. And then number 5, Keishon Butte out of LSU, cracking freshman season.
LSU produce good runners as well normally.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
We won't mention Darius Geist, but
yeah, Alan, you got anything different from that, mate? Or?
The only guy I'm probably higher on than you is Olave. I've got 5. I might have him even higher, I think, as the season goes on. I mean, I think Olave is hugely underrated. I think there's a better than even chance that by the end of the year Olave is wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. I think he's that good, and it'll be interesting to see how that pans out during the course of the year. So I'm slightly higher than him than you are. The other guys pretty much the same. I've Burks at 6, not quite as high as 2, and largely beyond that is pretty much the same. A couple of guys I've got coming in, freshman Egbuka out of Ohio State and Josh Downs, UNC, who I think both look pretty interesting coming into the season.
I think with these freshman wide receivers, though, I mean, I see so many people planting their flags already on them, and it's I find wide receiver the hardest. I was speaking to Kev about this on Twitter the other day, and I find wide receiver the hardest to scout and to project coming from high school to college. I think that we talk about the jump for wide receivers from college to NFL, but the jump for wide receivers from high school to college is huge.
I find it almost impossible at the moment to separate the Alabama guys. I think you've got Mechie on there. I think I've got him somewhere, but I mean, he could just as easily disappear down the depth chart as actually be the number 1 receiver, because they have so many wide receiver.
Yeah, normally Alabama
prospect.
go out and they grab themselves like a 5-star, like one of the top 2 receivers in the nation come out of high school, and they didn't really do that. They've got Ja'Cory Brooks who is their 5-star prize, but there's a lot of other receivers that they brought in, Jojo Earl and players like that.
Well, it was depth, wasn't it? I mean, they got 4 of the top 10 recruits in the country. Which
and it's just how do you separate that? It's mad, isn't it?
So I don't actually fancy Mechie's chances much, to be honest, because the prospects they've got coming in look stronger, to be honest, down to Errol, to Brooks, to Hall. There's even Christian Leary, who's the ninth recruit in the country, and he's the 4th top recruit Alabama I've got. I mean, you might never see the field.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think Leary, the way he sort of built, I think he'll see the field on special teams early, which is which is key for freshman wide receivers coming in. I think if they can get on the field on special teams and be trusted, then they sort of gets them a path to starting in 3 and 4 wide receiver sets and things. But it's going to be a strange one to see in Alabama. Alabama and Ohio State are just absolutely.
The Alabama class was ranked the top recruiting class ever
of all time.
Ever. It's not as if they had a bad team coming into the year, and they had the best ever recruiting class. It's crazy.
They managed to attract a lot of. There was a lot of sort of ambiguity, wasn't there, in guys coming out of high school. They weren't able to get around the country and get to the campuses as much as they normally do to see and get a feel and get chatted up by coaches and stuff like that. So a lot of them, it seems, just signed with where they knew that they could trust.
And teams I think increasingly are falling back on SEC caliber players when they draft. And Saban's using, I've seen the video that they had of Saban recruiting a couple of players during the course of the cycle this year, and he just plays off that all the time. And literally, he more or less, without saying it directly, says, "Well, come here, and I pretty much guarantee you'll get drafted," which is quite an offer to be able to make.
Yeah. He's not far wrong.
He's not wrong. That's the truth of it. He's not selling snake oil. He's pretty much true to his word. It's like, well, you can come in and you can go somewhere else and play a lot, but actually you come here and you'll be competing with the best corners, the best safeties, best linebackers, best linemen, and the guys you're playing against in practice are better than the guys everyone else are playing against on Saturday.
Yeah.
The rest of your top 15 here, Jason: Marvin Mims, Raheem Jarrett, Chris Olave, Drake London, Jordan Addison, Julian Fleming, Jermaine Burton, John Mechie, Quinton Johnson, and Josh Downs. Let's go on to the other page.
The only one of them that could fall off a cliff for me is Julian Fleming. 5-star prospect coming in, but and he's that high because of what he was coming out of high school. He was the number 1 or number 2 player in the nation. There's 7 or 8 wide receivers that, if they continue on the same arc as what they were coming out of high school, they'll be top 64 picks in the NFL draft. So I just, he needs to get on the field in 3 wide receiver sets, and it will be hard for him to do that. He needs to improve a lot from what he did last year, so he could fall off a cliff.
Alan, anyone to add?
I think that covers them all. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else. Only the freshmen that we talked about earlier on, so largely the same otherwise.
Okay. Let's move on to the tight ends. So we've got Michael Mayer, Eric Gilbert. This is where I'm really going to butcher all these names now. Jalen Windermere, Jeremy Rucker, Darnell Washington. That's your top 5 there, Jason.
Yeah, so 5 back to 1. Darnell Washington, I don't even think was in Alan's 15. He's certainly a bit of a freak, 6'7". He's built like a defensive end, but I think we talked about him last year, Jack, didn't we? Like, some of the things he did for Georgia last year once JT Daniels came in, as a freshman, and he has really, really, really high-end NFL talent, I think, if he continues the way he's going, just because he's an absolute freak. 4, who did I have at 4 again, mate?
You had Jeremy Rucker.
Yeah, Rucker, a guy I think probably should have declared this year. He's now
tight end class this year, though. I think it's a bit underrated.
Yeah, it's not a bad tight end class, but I think he would firmly be a day 2 guy, and I don't really see him, sort of going back and becoming a day 1 guy next year. I don't think, now that Fields has moved on as well, and he's going to be changing quarterback. Weidemeyer at number 3, fantastic season last year, set records. He's got Baylor Cup coming back as well. That's a really strong tight end room in Texas, there at Texas A&M. He translates as I think as a round 1 guy, as the way things are going at the minute next year. And then 2 and 1, I think most people have got Gilbert at 1, but you know how much I love Eric Gilbert coming out, but there's just too much going on with that guy for me to have him at 1. We don't even know where he's going to be playing football now. Signed for LSU, had a great freshman season at LSU, left there because he was homesick. Bear in mind he's from Georgia, signed with Florida. Was set up to step into, fill a huge void left by Kyle Pitts. Decided enough at Florida, and now back in the portal again. So we'll see where he lands. I think talent-wise, him and Michael Mayer coming out were very different players, but pretty much quite equal. It's sort of both 5-star guys coming out. But Mayer did just as much as a freshman for me, but I think he offers a little bit more in the run blocking game. I think he's got a little bit more of a stronger head on his shoulders, and I think Notre Dame will develop him really well. And I think he's going to get TJ Hawkinson type draft stock, I think, when it comes to it in 2023, even if he just has another 2 seasons like he's already had.
Alan, anything to add?
I mean, I done these rankings probably the day before Alec Gilbert decided he was going to transfer again, and I think if I'd done them again, I would drop him about 10 spots. I just don't think you can have any faith in where this guy's going to end up whatsoever. And there's clearly something not right. I'd have some fairly big doubts whether he's ever going to make it based on transferring twice within 2 months. I mean, there's no doubt he's talented. There's no doubt he's coming out of high school. He was a hell of a player. I don't know. I don't know how you can have any faith in him at this point.
I agree.
I'm not quite there yet to write him off completely. Like I say, I'll wait and see where he lands and stuff. But I mean, he should have just. He wanted to go home. He should have just gone to Georgia or Georgia Tech or so. Don't
worry, Jason. We know you're never going to be able to quit on him. You can't give up the love of your life that easily. I wouldn't have thought.
The rest of your top 15 is Jadil Billingsley, Theo Johnson, Cade Otton, Charlie Kohler, Bailey Cup, Hudson Henry, Sam Laporta, Jake Ferguson, Thomas Fidone, and Brant Kuthi, if that's how you pronounce it. There you go, see? I'm terrible at pronouncing these names, but there you go.
I thought you did a good job, mate.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.
Jake Ferguson. I think you got Jake Ferguson right.
Cheers, mate. Cheers. I mean, you are welcome to lead if you like, you know.
No. Your excellent pronunciation, they definitely should take precedence.
Anything to add there, Jason?
Just the nice little rookie coming in, Thomas Fidone, going to Nebraska. Top tight end in the nation last year. I think he gets a lot of opportunity, I think, in Nebraska. Quite a good offensive system that they've got there. And he looks like a complete prospect. But, you know, like I say, it's 2024 before he'll be drafted. But he's certainly a guy to keep an eye on if you're, if you're in a shallowish Devy league. He should be owned in all deep Devy leagues once the supplementals have been done and stuff. So, yeah.
He should go flying up these ranks, assuming Scott Frost can get the Nebraska offense moving in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, he showed signs of life last year, I thought, at times. You know, they've got a couple of good playmakers on the outside there, and, they've got a stable-ish quarterback situation. So we'll see. I think they got a highly committed offensive lineman coming in as well, left tackle. 4-star top 5 guy coming in as well. So they're making strides. I think there's a lot of high hopes for Fidone in Nebraska. I really like the landing spot.
Anything to add, Alan?
No, pretty much the same in a few different order, but the guys at the top are pretty much the same. Bit more on Rocket. Not really too convinced by him. Probably a bit higher in Fidone, actually. I think I agree with Jason. He's a very interesting looking prospect, but largely similar.
That's how. That is the rankings. We've taken a look at them. Alan,
What are we doing next?
We're going to do our my guys. So we'll start with your three my guys.
Okay, where have we got? So I've got 3. So 2 wide receivers and a tight end. Can do the tight end first. So the guy. I mean, I've got a lot of Brevin Jordan, who I'm really quite excited about where he's going to land. I think coming in the draft in April. I can't get my head around why anyone would take Kyle Pitts in the top 10 when you can probably get Brevin Jordan at some point on day 2. But I don't think we should spend too much time going into Kyle Pitts being drafted in the top 10.
I don't think we should, because we'd be here all day, mate.
Well, I think you're taking Kyle Pitts at number 6, definitely.
We're not even going to go there, because this could drag on for a long time. There's only so much Jalen Hurts and Kyle Pitts conversation we can realistically have. And I think Brevin Jordan's he's not quite as good as Pitts, but from a value point of view, what you're going to get on day 2 for Brevin Jordan versus what you're going to get from Pitts if you take him in the top 10, I'd take Brevin Jordan every day of the week. I think if he lands in the right place, he can be used really well. You can move him around, use him in different ways, in a similar way that you can with Pitts, but probably with great athleticism. So I'm quite excited about him. And the 2 receivers, Rondale Moore, who I've got a lot of Rondale Moore shares from that first season at Purdue. Obviously, the injuries are a concern. It's that balance of the talent, and if he stays healthy, there's a lot of similarities to Laviska Shenault. A lot of similar skill sets, a bit smaller. If you can get past the injuries though, and Moore is healthy for 5-6 years, I think he's going to be a star. And then the third guy I had was Tyron Wallace. So Tyron Wallace 2018 did a massive season, and I think as a result I've got about 20 shares of him, tosses around all over the place. But I get he's not going to go too early, and again, he's had some injury concerns the last couple of years. Probably going to be a day 2, maybe early day 3 guy. But he's such a fun player to watch, and you can see a skill set which he's going to be a productive Z receiver in the league. I think the big question of his success, if he can actually have an impact at X as well, you could be looking at a really, really top end receiver.
Yeah, I really like Wallace, mate. I think that's a great shout. I think he's. I'm really hoping he goes to a nice landing spot, though. I think that's quite an important one for his type of player. I think.
Yeah,
I think it's just important in general for any player declaring for the draft. The landing spot is just key to so many.
I think you've got a couple of guys that are like, you know, that will receive a position that you know you're pretty comfortable that they would get themselves on the field. You know, Amari Rodgers coming out of Clemson, I don't think he's, you know, reliant on what system he goes to potentially. Gabriel Davis last year, I think could have landed on any roster in the NFL and probably would have forced himself on the field at some point. You know, I think if you're a good, you know, if your tangibles are good, if you're a good route runner and you know you're reliable, you know, good hands, then you know they're all important things. But you know, like I said, it depends with Alan where they line Wallace up. I think, you know, if you play in the slot, you've got in the NFL, the slot is a massive step up from college because you know some of these linebackers that you know you're taking hits off and that are just a completely different ball game to what you're dealing with in college. You know, and if you're playing outside, I think that transition is probably, if anything, a little bit easier as long as you can release and you know you can get off the line of scrimmage. It's probably easier to translate to that than it is potentially to a heavy volume slot guy. But yeah, I really like Wallace. It was interesting when you say about Jordan Allen that he's a really, I think he's a polarizing prospect. I think he has a really, really high ceiling, but I think he's got a really worryingly low floor. I don't think he's similar to Pitts, you know, whatsoever. I don't think that they're very similar tight ends. I certainly could see from a value standpoint how, you know, it would be beneficial for a team to take a position of need on day one, you know, a really, really, you know, top end offensive lineman or edge rusher, etc. And then you could fall back on Jordan, you know, towards the end of the second round sort of thing. But I mean, I don't think he'll be the second tight end off the board anyway. I think Pat Freiermuth will go before him.
Yeah, I think Jordan might slip in the third round, to be honest, rather than maybe even the second. Again, it's value, and as you say, he's not Pitts. Pitts is a better player, and you say a very different type of player. But the value of I mean, you can absolutely guarantee. You can't guarantee whether Pitts is going to be good or not. You can guarantee he will not return the value of a top 10 pick.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could say that, can't you, about any tight end, like you said before. I just think, you know, nowadays, I think Hockenson was again, you know, like Jack said before, you know, he went to the Lions and they didn't know how to use him. Last year, they just started getting Stafford. It looked like he was just taking it upon himself to get the ball into his hands because he was his best, you know, one of his best defensive players that he had. But again, it was the landing spot was the problem.
No, and there is a bit in that as well, because there's always, I was thinking this about Pitts, and there's a bit of chicken or egg, right? It's actually, is it that you can't get the value of a tight end in the top 10, or is it actually that teams in the top 10 are never going to be good enough to actually plug in a tight end and get the value out of them? Yeah, I think
it's a good point because I see it similar to like running backs. Teams that take running backs in the top 10 are bad teams, and it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's the greatest idea. If you understand, like it's not. If you understand what I'm trying to say, it's not. I see tight ends that go in the top 10 as I view running backs that go in the top 10. They might be great players, but they're going to bad teams.
But people don't forget that all the time. They seem to be completely devoid of the idea of value of draft position and players that you can get later who are maybe not as good players as the players you can take in the first round, but you get better value out of them. It's the better teams don't draft tight ends in the top 10. They don't generally draft tight ends in the first round.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'll start with my three here. So I've got Javonte Williams as he is my RB2 in this draft class. kind of like what we said earlier with Javonte. He is a bit of a Chris Carson type running back. He's violent, the way he runs. I reckon he'll be a second-round pick. I don't know if you guys agree with that in the NFL draft.
I think he'll probably be a third-round pick. He might even slip into day 3.
You reckon?
Not in talent, just in value.
I think he's gone. I think he's gone by pick 60.
I think he goes in the second round personally. He's a strong running back. I noticed when I've watched tape on Javonte Williams, he's got very good patience. Have you two have seen that?
Yeah. No, that's definitely the word I think that jumps out when you watch Williams.
So yeah,
there is a bit of I think by the comparison a couple of people have said that there's a bit of Le'Veon Bell in size and patience in the style of running.
Yeah, he lets his blocks develop, doesn't he? Yeah. And he goes from there. He's not a one cut hit the hole type guy. He's got good vision, good burst, fantastic tackle breaker.
Great in pass protection as well. That for me, I know people. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter for fantasy. To me, it does. He gets it at the end of the day. It gets that running back on the field. It's why I didn't like CEH last year in the class. And I didn't agree with him being a top 5 pick or whatever he was in fantasy. I was proven right. So
far.
No. I just last year people like even in redraft leagues people go, he's top 5 picks. He's gone to the Chiefs. Okay, but he doesn't pass block. You have to get people have to get this in their head that pass blocking matters in the NFL. Look at Ronald.
I was a bit disappointed.
Ronald Jones 3 years to get that job.
I was a bit disappointed with the way that I dealt with CH because he came out as the RB5 in my prospect model, and I bumped him up to 2 because of the landing spot. And he's not Jamal Charles. This whole idea of Kansas City being a great spot for running backs, I don't actually think it is. People would this year, if they hadn't drafted CEH and they drafted Travis Etienne this year, people would be like, oh, that's it. He's RB1, and Kenneth Gainwell, for an example. If they draft Kenneth Gainwell, who for me has come out quite low on my model. If he was to go to as one of these, electric satellite backs, go to Kansas City, it would be bumped up because of that how high powered that offense is. But ultimately, Patrick Mahomes is going to, regardless of whether they're winning the game, is going to throw the ball 30 times. So I don't actually think that it's one of those spots where the running back is that important, because they've just shown that they'll rotate. You could get a week winning week out of CH, and then the next week you could put up 2.5 points. Because
I do agree with what you're saying, and I agreed with it last year as well. I think with most of the points that he was overdrafted, but there's also a bit that people are overreacting to his rookie season, right? I mean, if he had scored an average amount of touchdowns, he would become as an absolute locked in RB1.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's in his rookie season. Yeah,
I don't disagree, but back to Javonte Williams with it. For me, pass protection matters. I know people say it doesn't matter for fantasy. It does, because it's what gets that player on the field.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that down, because I completely forgotten what we were talking about.
Which is why I have Javonte Williams over Travis Etienne. Sorry to say it, Alan.
Idiot. It's a crime. It's a crime.
I'm sorry, dude, but my number 2 guys, Rashad Bateman. Again, Rashad Bateman is my wide receiver 2 in this draft class. I love, the more tape I watch of Rashad Bateman, the more I fall in love. I see Stephon Diggs in Rashad Bateman. Great route runner, can play all over, slot, on the outside, on the perimeter. I just love what I see. Physical runner, the physical catcher in the air. Just everything I watch on him, I love it.
The nice thing about Rashad Bateman as well is that he's potentially not being touted as a top 32 pick yet, just yet. There was rumblings of it when he ran that 40-yard dash that he never ran like at that speed. But there was people that were rumbling about him being a top 32 pick, and the thing with him is if he goes in the middle of round 2, the chances are he's probably going to land in quite a nice spot, really. And I
hopefully my Giants.
Yeah, I'd said a nice spot, mate.
I'm still torn on Bateman. And had he run that 40, it would have made a big difference, because I'm just worried about whether that kind of player is easy enough to project into the league. There's so many jump ball guys. There's so many guys. His skill set, which he is undoubtedly good at, and his tape is undoubtedly good. Projecting that to the league's been a really hit or miss.
That to the league, Alan. You love these speed guys, but I've still there's every year, the NFL gets excited about these speed guys, and not one of them's popped.
I'm not sure Tyreek Hill kind of popped.
Well, but Tyreek Hill was a 5th round draft pick, mate. But he
wouldn't have been had it not been. He wouldn't have been a 5th round draft pick had it not been for the, shall we say, slightly questionable off-field.
But we're talking about guys like John Ross. We're talking about Henry Ruggs. We're talking about what's going to be Jalen Wallace.
Ruggs is only one season in, so I think you have to give Ruggs a chance. John Ross was too small. There's a difference between being extremely fast and well-rounded and just being fast.
So you don't rate Jalen Waddle this year then? Because if you think John Ross is small and Waddle is within 5,
Waddle's more rounded than Ross, though. And the difference with Ross more than anything else was it's difficult to know what John Ross could have been had he not been injured all the time. Yeah. He was injured coming in. He was constantly injured in the run up to the second season.
I just think for a wide receiver, what Jack's getting at with Bateman, what you want to see, I see it all. Devontae Adams was a 2nd round draft pick. He didn't have elite speed, but he had a very, very, very similar production profile coming out of Fresno as what Bateman's got coming out of Minnesota. It took him 2 seasons, and now he's arguably the best receiver.
Yeah, but you can't just pick one example of what it works.
But what I'm saying is the tangibles that you're saying. So long speed, you're saying he's not got enough long speed potentially, which I agree. I don't actually think he's that quick, but I'm saying I don't think that matters with the type of player that he is. He's a fantastic route runner. He's a great separator. I don't think that this long speed thing, we'll talk about it, when we talk about the rookies that are coming in, is a very, very speed heavy wide receiver class that are coming in, and I totally agree with Jack. I got Bateman at 2. He's got a 96th percentile breakout age, a 92nd percentile dominator rating. He's got NFL size, 210 pounds, 6'2", played Big Ten football. If we see top 64 draft capital, 1st, 2nd round, then I can't get away from Bateman as there's not a prospect. Obviously Chase is at 1, but there's a massive gap after Bateman for me after that. And I just think we as fantasy football players get too tied into what the NFL think in a player. The NFL want these guys.
But that's important, Jason. It is important because that's what gets them on the field. You said a lot of these same things last year about Brian Edwards.
Yeah, but again, you talk about John Ross being injured. Brian Edwards was injured. I've not really seen a lot of Brian Edwards really. He got. Yeah,
but that's being serious. That's the point, though. Is that they need to be able to see the field, and having athleticism and being able to win gets you on the field. That's the challenge. The issue I've got with Bateman, but I'm not really particularly low on Bateman. I think Bateman's a good receiver. My worry about him and why I wouldn't have him as high as you've got him is I think projecting what he does well to the league is difficult. And that doesn't mean he won't be good at it. It doesn't mean he can't do it. It just means it's difficult to project it, which I always struggle with guys where you have to kind of squint a bit to see how they actually win. And that would have been the same with Devontae Adams. I didn't think Devontae Adams was that great coming out. I had serious questions about his athleticism, his ability to really separate and make an impact And it's like, but he has, it doesn't mean he's not going to do it. It just means it's difficult to project. And that for me always brings people down in my rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I see as many issues with Bateman from an athleticism standpoint. If that's what we're talking about, athleticism, I don't see as many issues as what you do when I watch tape. If we're talking about just speed and long speed and the ability to go over the top and beat a defender deep, then yeah, I totally agree with you. But I don't really think that's that important.
We'll see.
And my number 3 guy, not someone I'm particularly very confident coming into the NFL, but it's Tamori and Terry. I've just got a lot of shame. Opted out of his, I think, what did he play? 5 games for FSU last season, and then he opted out, something like that.
I wouldn't spend a lot of time talking about.
I'm not gonna. He's got a big frame, big catch radius. Think DK Metcalf in that sort of respect, but he's not DK Metcalf.
There's a lot to work with there, isn't there, for a good offensive team?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rumblings that the Chiefs might be interested. I know Sammy Watkins and DeMarcus Robinson are free agents, so I mean, if he landed there, that would certainly push him up the board a bit. But he does have some major concerns with drops.
There's just too many questions, I think, with Terry. It might work out.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be banking on it.
I mean, if he landed with the Chiefs, it'd certainly push him up your board a bit.
Yeah. Does he run fast enough for the Chiefs?
He's pretty fast.
I think he's going to be quick. Yeah, I think he's going to be quick, but
he does. I'm not.
There's quick, and then there's Chiefs quick, though, right?
Yeah, he's not going to give you Mecole Hardman or Tyreek Hill speed, I don't think. But then he's a completely different type of body size, isn't he? So,
as I say, there is concerns there. There's a lot of concerns, but I thought I'd mention him because I've got, for some reason, a lot of Terrace across Devy leagues, and I don't know why, because I was never high on him at FSU. I was. Jason, your top 3.
So I've got 2 running backs and a receiver. So Jamar Jefferson out of Oregon State is a guy that I really like. He is, as things stand, my RB5 in the class. I think you can probably get him at sort of RB6, RB7 sort of value at the moment. 5'9", 215, 3,000 college rushing yards, but he only played in 2 seasons, 27 touchdowns. Elite vision, great burst. He's fairly good in pass protection. They left him on the field quite a lot of the time on 3rd down. I didn't really see many situations on tape where he needed to pass block regularly, but he's shown an ability to do that. 87% catch percentage, like catches everything. I don't have any worries about him as a receiver. The only real downside with Jamar Jefferson is he does go down quite easy. He's not your tackle breaking type of guy. Someone with a decent arm tackle or certainly a body tackle is going to take him down. But I think you can get him for really good value. And if he goes to an outside zone type of offense, like San Francisco, or maybe Atlanta or somewhere like that, I think he could be a good fit.
I think you have to be patient with him. I think he's definitely a good pass catcher. I think that's probably what's going to make him stick and what will make him a good value early on. I think he'll get on a team relatively quickly and likely get some passing work. I just don't know about him as a runner, and I think it'll take some time to actually establish him. That doesn't mean he won't, but
yeah,
I think
it all goes hand in hand with where he gets drafted. I mean, if he gets drafted in the top 100, then I think that he'll be given every opportunity to produce and to get sort of 15 touches a game. But I think if he slips to day 3, he's probably just going to become a depth guy that is going to have to beat out what's ahead of him to get on the field. And
there's a whole chunk of running backs. There's just sort of from Gainwell, Herbert, Sermon, Hill, guys like that, who are all in a sort of group, which if you're right, I mean, if they go in the top 100, you'll have quite high hopes for them, and if they if they drift in the fifth or sixth round,
draft class at
Yeah.
it's not a great class
It's
apart
not.
from your top three guys, and then I think it sort of falls off a little bit after that.
Even then, I'd personally like someone like ETN. I think ETN has to land in the right spot for me.
Totally agree. You need to know how to use ETN properly. You can't just put ETN in a bad team, behind a poor offensive line, give them the ball 20 times a game. It's not going to happen at all. 205.
I think we've mentioned it before, Jason. The Niners would be a nice fit for ETN.
It'd be a great spot for him, yeah. But I'm just worried that he goes somewhere in a power scheme where they don't know how to use him properly. He runs like Latavius Murray, like he runs standing up. He's going to be injured. He needs to go to a team that knows how to use him, and you're going to get better production out of him if you use him as a receiver out the backfield, and if you use him on outside zones and screens and things like that. I think he's got really, really high end potential. I agree with Alan. He's got a really, really high ceiling, but he needs to go to the right spot. The next guy is Nadjie Harris. So I've rostered Nadjie Harris in a couple of Devy leagues pretty much since he come out of high school. Obviously 5-star recruit coming out. I think he's coming into the draft, they reckon, at about 230, 6'2", 230. I mean, that's big boy size, that. My comp for him pretty much all the way through from high school to what he's done now has been Steven Jackson. Not a big fan of comps because people automatically associate that's the career that they're going to have.
Yep.
That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that their style is similar to that. Ridiculous decision, I thought, at the time, to go back to school last year. I thought he was going to come out and he went back. Mind-blowing decision because he was pretty much locked in for a day 2 pick last year, but he obviously gone back to school thinking that he could push himself into the first round, and he might well have done that. He won the Dope Walker Award, 1,500 rushing yards, 20-something touchdowns, 24 touchdowns. He caught the ball 80 times throughout college, and for a big back, I mean, Derrick Henry didn't do that at Alabama. For a big back, is really impressive to see. And he doesn't he's not a body catcher. You can use him on wheel routes and in the advanced screen game and things like that. He's a good receiver. I don't know if you've seen his measurements at the Senior Bowl. He posted an 81-inch wingspan. I mean, that's tight end numbers. That is, you'd be happy with your tight end with an 81-inch wingspan. But the closest receiver to him was 3 inches, 2.5 inches shorter. Tackle breaking machine, really, really good at breaking tackles. But what I do like about him, and I think it's very important, I think a lot of people think that because he's a power back, he's a power guy, that he relies on power to get through the tackles, but that's not the case. He uses movement he's very good laterally from getting from one side of the line to the other side of the line, to get through the box and past defenders that way. He doesn't just rely on power, but it's there if he needs to use it. He's a first round pick for me. Whether you use that on a running back, you decide to use that on a running back, because he's not this special, Alvin Kamara type, Travis Etienne type of running back. He's just your 3-down guy that's going to just do everything really, really well. I think if anything stops him going in the first round, it's the lack of top end speed. I mean, he hasn't got, David Montgomery lack of top end speed, but he hasn't got Jonathan Taylor 4.37 speed or whatever it was that Taylor ran last year. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely the speed with Harris. And there's something. There's no real rationale behind this, but there's so few backs at that size doing well. I mean, Derrick Henry seems like such an outlier. I know Henry's a bit bigger, but there's such an outlier at that size that you just wonder if teams really know how to use backs that are that size anymore.
They do, mate. I think Tennessee realised, it took them a while to realise what they had in Henry. When LaFleur was there, they were using Dion Lewis for things that you would use Derrick Henry for. I think they finally realised what they had in Henry, and I think they built the offense around Henry. And if a team can do that for Harris, I mean, if he goes to Buffalo, I've got a lot of high hopes for.
Do you think? But Buffalo would be a terrible landing spot. They never run the ball.
Yeah, they don't run the ball because they haven't had a good run. When was the last 1,000-yard rusher that they had in Buffalo?
I like
That's because they never run the ball.
Yeah,
I like Steelers for Nadjie.
Steelers would be a Steelers.
Steelers is a great spot because he's a better version, a better James Conner. He fits that system really well.
Yeah.
But where do the Steelers pick? 20? Is it 20?
Something like that. I think he goes to the Dolphins anyway, Nadjie.
I don't think so. I don't think that's the kind of back the Dolphins like.
I agree. I don't think he fits Miami's.
I think ETN's more likely to go to Miami than Harris.
Yeah, I don't know if it is 20 West Pittsburgh pick 20 to 24 somewhere like that. I don't know if that's a little bit early for Nadjie if they use that.
And they desperately need an offensive tackle.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I think the average age of their offensive line is like 31 now, isn't it? So they've got some old boys there, and they've got Pouncey's moved on and retired and stuff as well. So they've got a need at centre. Like I said, I just think with where they pick in the draft, I think Buffalo would be. We're comparing how many times they ran the ball last year when they had Singletary and Moss. I mean, none of them are bred over 205 pounds. I think in that RPO game with Josh Allen behind a very, very good offensive line, I think that's a really good spot for him at pick 30. At pick 30 as well. Yeah. My third guy is Terrace Marshall, wide receiver. 6'3", 200. Me and Alan spoke about him the other day. Former 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Quite quiet early on in his career at LSU, behind guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Hasn't really broke out. I don't think he's ever cleared over 1,000 yards receiving. But what he's put on tape has been enough for scouts to NFL scouts to quite like him, and what I've seen of him on tape, I think he projects really well as a potential number one outside wide receiver. I think he's now starting to knock on the door of the back end of round one, maybe the top of round two, sort of Michael Pittman, T. Higgins sort of range from last year. Again, not 92nd percentile dominator rating, 88th percentile breakout age. And to be honest with you, he did that, and I was quite shocked when I put him into the model. I was quite shocked that he come out with that, because it doesn't seem like he had any high level of production at LSU, but he's come out quite well. He had a decent ownership of the target share last year, and I think he's a real sleeper in this draft. He's wide receiver free for me, comfortably.
Agreed. We seem to have lost Alan. What happened there?
Back.
Let's get back. Do you guys want to take a quick look at the upcoming college season, or should we call it a wrap there for tonight?
Yeah, I think we'll do that next time. Should we do that next month?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that next month. It's been a long pod, and hope everyone's enjoyed it. You can find us on Twitter at KickersMatter, at Kickers_Matter, or at KMDevy. All our articles are now up on KingFantasySports.com. Alan, I know you've got a few up there recently.
Yeah, I've got there's another couple Richard's got as well. I had a flurry of article writing the weekend before last, so he's got a backlog to get through for the next one. My next one on why drafting Kyle Pitts in the top 10, and 15,000 words on why Jalen Hurts isn't Patrick Mahomes. I think coming out.
I think you've already written 15,000 words on Twitter, haven't you, in the last 2 weeks about Jalen Hurts?
I'll get over it.
Before we end this, boys, I mean a rookie mock quickly with someone. Superflex. Mac Jones or Trey Lance at the 301?
Trey Lance.
Jason.
Oh, don't even hesitate. Don't listen to Jason. Just take Trey Lance.
I think at this stage, before we know landing spots and draft capital, I think it's Trey Lance. Yeah.
And then once we know landing spots and draft capital, Trey Lance.
Cheers, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it.
Cheers, guys.
Take care. Bye.